Hello and welcome to the Gratitude and Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Sara, and I am so happy you found your way here. Most of you probably know me as an actor, but what you might not know is I have been on the most transformative journey these last few years. And I've created this podcast to share the discoveries I've had and things I've learned and continue to learn about this wonderful journey we all call life and how to attain joy, peace, and ultimately freedom. Because I think that's what we're all striving for at the end of the day. I'm here to share some tools that can change your life, hone your mental discipline, and empower you to step into the highest version of who you want to be. I'm going to share my own journey of how I got here, but please do not live from my experience. My intention is for you to live from and create your own experience. Take what works, leave what doesn't. There is no right or wrong here. Just do you. Just be you. Okay? Alrighty, let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode. I hope you all had a wonderful couple weeks. Happy Thanksgiving to all of those who celebrated in the US. I've been off for a week, and so it's so nice to be back, to be sitting here, to be recording. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. I hope you find a wonderful home here that inspires you and encourages you and gives you tools and fills your life with as much gratitude as humanly possible. Okay, today I want to dive in. I actually just want to talk about something that happened to me the other week because I realized it's these moments in life that trip us up when they happen. And for so many years, I didn't know how to navigate these moments. And so I just want to dive in and just tell you what happened and kind of tell you how I used all the tools I talk about on this podcast, how I used mental discipline, the fact that everything is a choice, breath work, understanding the separation between mind, body, soul in a really sad moment, let's say. So what was happening was I was packing up my condo in Toronto because I was doing a move, and I was sitting there on the floor with a bunch of Rubbermaid containers, the big ones, you know what I mean? And I was packing everything up, and look, granted, I was tired. I had a really long day. I had a photo shoot that day, which was amazing, but it was a lot of work. And in 3 days, I'd be driving across the country to a new home, and then, there was a lot going on. And I was sitting there amongst the Rubbermaid containers on the floor packing. And suddenly, I was hit with such a memory in such a wave of grief. And the memory was this moment, feeling super overwhelmed, having these Rubbermaid containers all around me, took me back immediately to the moment of when I was packing up my dad's apartment after he died. And there was a bunch of Rubbermaid containers around me, and I was sitting on the floor. And my mom and my sister were there, and they weren't there this time, but it's these moments I find so fascinating, how they can just pull us back to a memory like that. So for the record, another word I heard a lot, which I always deemed a quote unquote therapy word, was the word trigger. And I didn't really understand what it meant. Now there's so many different types of triggers, but this to me is a moment of a trigger. This is a very emotional trigger. And so I was brought right back to that moment. And this is what happened to my body from a mental, physical, emotional perspective. Now, just so you know, I'm super fascinated with the human psyche, with human behavior, with the mind, body, soul connection. This is the stuff I thrive off of. I love being so aware in these moments to be like, whoa, what's happening to me? And then I love kind of dissecting it afterward. So just for those who are new, welcome to my mind. This is how it works. Also, for those who are new, if you haven't listened to the second episode, which is what I actually call episode 1, Who I Was. I'll try to link it in the show notes. Take a listen to there because you'll get a background on just losing my dad in my summer of sadness and how I didn't actually process the grief or process the loss of my dad for like 9 years. He died over 11 years ago now, and it took me so long to actually sit there and go through how to unpack and deal and accept that loss and that grief. And so that's the other thing, right? What I'm going to talk about today in this moment and the tools that I use, this is different than processing fresh grief. Let's call it that. This is processing a wave of grief that hits you. And that's the thing I've learned to accept, is that life will always have these waves. And it's not about shutting them down. That's the biggest message today, okay? Out of all of this. It's about honoring these waves of emotion when they hit you, but how to honor them and at the same time not indulge in them, right? So that they take over your life, especially when your to-do list is really long and you don't have time for it. Okay, so I'm sitting there, Rubbermaid containers all around, and I get hit with this memory. And so the first thing that happens to me is the emotion hits me literally in a wave. My heart kind of contracts, my solar plexus kind of contract, and I feel all of it, all the grief, like pure raw grief hit me. And I feel my eyes start to burn. So that hits me. And then my mind chimes in. And this is what my mind tells me. Sara, you don't have time for this. There's so much you have to do. Get on with it. You're fine. You've done all the work. You've processed this. Everything's great. Just keep moving and it'll go away. And it also tells me things like, hey, you have makeup on from this photo shoot, and if you cry right now, you're probably going to get an eye sty. So this is not a good time. Let's just keep going. Hey, you have a family function tomorrow. You're going to take pictures. If you cry right now, your eyes are probably going to be puffy and you're not going to look good in those pictures. So that's my ego, right? That's the egoic mind. That's kind of how it takes over. And so I have this big emotional need to release, but my mind's like, no, stop. And then physically, my breath starts to lock up. Like I said, there's a tightness in my chest, tightness in my solar plexus. And I'm sitting there on the floor and all this is going on. And here's the thing. Even though I've done all the work on this and I understand, I choose to go with my mind at first. I really do. For like 15 minutes, I'm like, cool, yeah, I'm all good. And I keep packing and I keep moving. I start singing to myself. I'm like, pump yourself back up. You're fine. Now, the mind isn't a bad guy for wanting to do this. It's not a bad guy. It's just trying to protect you. Because to give in to the emotion is uncomfortable. You know, I have a bit of a fascination with discomfort and what discomfort actually is. And how, yes, it does exist, but it only exists as much as you let it exist. This is why I love doing cold plunges or cold showers. This is why I love pushing my mental discipline in meditation, in breath work, because you learn to sit in the discomfort. So when these moments happen, the reason your mind wants to fight it is because it just doesn't want to be uncomfortable. But this is the moment of separation between mind, body, soul. And so I follow it though. Look, I'll be real. I totally followed it. I'm like, yeah, right. I don't want puffy eyes for the pictures tomorrow. Right. I probably will get an eye sty because I have all this makeup on. And yes, I don't have time to sit here and cry. But here's the thing. You know that saying, what you resist persists? I didn't understand that saying for a really long time. But it's these moments. When you resist the emotion, it only persists. And so I used to resist this emotion for so many years because honestly, I was made to believe that I was just quote unquote too emotional. I was too emotional of a person and that I needed to keep my emotions in check. And so that's why I didn't process my dad's death for so long, because I just kept shutting it down and shutting it down and shutting it down. And it's one thing when it persists for 15 minutes, right? But can you see how when you keep shutting it down for weeks, months, years, it just builds? And not only that, unreleased emotion will build in your body. At least it does for me. It'll build in certain aches and pains and injuries even. And so suppressing the emotion only makes it stronger. Even for 15 minutes, I felt it magnify. I felt it build and build and build. And then suddenly I noticed myself starting to get grumpy. I noticed myself starting to get defensive, starting to have these defensive thoughts about the most random things, because that emotion was starting to manifest in my body in different ways. So finally, after like 15 minutes, I was like, Sara, stop. You know what to do here. And it's okay. And so this is what I did. I sat down on the floor amongst all the Rubbermaid containers, and I put one hand on one of the containers, and I put one hand on my heart. And all I did was just breathe. This is where breath work helps me. Breathwork classes on their own are great. Honestly, they're so great to get you out of your mind and into your body. But what's even better about them is when you can take these tools and actually apply them in these moments in life. I mean, that's why you do all these classes. That's why you do the breathwork and the yoga and working out and all that good stuff, right? And so this is also where mental discipline comes in. And so I sat there, one hand on Rubbermaid, one hand on my heart. And I just checked in with my breath. And I checked in with my heart, and my heart was pounding. It was pounding. And my mind suddenly started going into kind of panic mode, being like, no, 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 no. No time, no time, no time. But I just sat there. And I just started taking deep, slow breaths. It wasn't even box breathing, which is inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. I didn't want to put any kind of timer on it. I just started inhaling really deep and exhaling really slow. And I just did that probably for 60 seconds. I don't know. But the emotions still wouldn't release, right? And what I mean by that, honestly, is I needed to cry. I just needed to cry. I just needed to release the emotion. But my body was still fighting me. My actual body, it wasn't even my mind, my actual body wouldn't do the release. It was like my heart was still pounding and things were still tense and contracted. And so I just breathed for like 60 seconds. And then something I do, so this is actually very similar to my acting prep when I'm doing dark dramatic work, is for me, I need to talk out loud. That's what drops me into the present moment. And so all I did was, with my one hand on my heart, I just looked at the Rubbermaid. And out loud, I just said, it hurts. And that's all I needed. And then I just let the wave of grief hit me. Because yes, my dad died over 11 years ago, but I'm still allowed to miss him. These moments are still allowed to happen, no matter how much work I have done on myself, no matter how much I have accepted and how much I have honored him now and all of that. These moments in life are still going to get you. I'm going to have moments until I die where I miss him. And so I just allowed the grief to hit me and to hit me fully. And yeah, I cried. I cried and I sobbed. And you know what? It took maybe 5 minutes. And was it uncomfortable? Yes. Right? Again, this is where mental discipline with training discomfort and understanding that everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of discomfort, truly. And I think that's true for every facet of life. And I think discomfort is the thing that keeps us stuck sometimes, whether it's a business goal, a personal goal, an emotional goal, a spiritual goal. If we can overcome discomfort, we can do whatever we want to do, truly. So I just let it happen. And then here's where mental discipline also comes in, right? Because the mind also does love to thrive sometimes on fear and drama and stress. So I have the awareness where now, okay, so now I cry and I'm crying for 5 minutes and I'm in pain and I miss my dad. And then my mind wants to hold on to it, right? The biggest thing my mind goes to is guilt. That's just the biggest fearful emotion that my mind likes to attach to. Guilt over my dad, guilt over a million other things, and just like how I'm treating other people. Like guilt is just my thing. But I know that about myself. And so I know when I start thinking thoughts of guilt that I'm like, well, okay, pull it back. And it might sound, I don't know, harsh. I don't know if that's the word. But it's in these moments that you need the mental discipline even more than allowing these moments. Because without mental discipline, I spiral and I can get lost in the drama. I can get lost in the grief. And this is where the mental discipline and the fact that everything in life is a choice comes in. Because you have a choice how long you want to stay in that grief when it hits. And look, there's no right or wrong answer here, okay? There's some days where maybe I need to stay in it longer for whatever reason. But it's understanding and learning your body of what is indulging and what is the release. And so, sitting there, crying, in the grief, in the fear, in the pain. And then I'm like, okay, once I notice I've released, and once I notice my mind start being like, oh, and this, and this, and this. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Now it's time to close up this little ceremony of emotional release. And at that point, you know, it might sound corny to some people, but this is why gratitude is everything for me. It's in those moments that I come back to it. And so I put one hand on my heart, one hand on my solar plexus, and I say out loud, thank you. And I say thank you to my dad. I say thank you to my body for experiencing this and for letting me put it through discomfort. I say thank you to my mind for protecting me. And I say thank you to my soul for letting me feel it all. That's the biggest thing I learned. Like I said, I used to shut down these moments, these waves. Or if I needed to release, I always did it like it was, I don't know, some like secret moment, and I would hide away and I'd be like, cry and then move on. But I did it in shame. Whereas now I do it in honor. That's the difference for me. I used to do it like it was something to be ashamed of, like being emotional was such a bad thing. I'm not saying everybody is as emotional as I am, but I also think we live in a world where we're taught emotions make you weak, and emotions make you less than, and emotions make you unreliable almost. I love my emotions. My soul is here to experience it all. I am here to experience it all. And my highs are so high and my lows can be so low, and I want to experience everything in between, because we are human beings. We're not robots. We're not here to just be happy all the time. Also, we live in a world of relativity. How do you know joy if you don't know anything else? And also, especially in the personal development, spirituality, self-help world, not allowing these moments or thinking that they're never going to happen, that to me is toxic positivity. And I know, because I dove into that. I'll talk about this in an episode. I was like toxic positivity queen there for a while. And that's also how my perfectionism manifested, because I was like, nope, I've done all the work, so now everything's happy and I'm this biggest beacon of love and joy and light, and I will never experience pain, fear, grief ever again. That's just not life. It's not. It became about normalizing these moments, accepting that these moments will happen randomly throughout life. And it's not about fighting them. It's about letting them hit you, having the awareness of what is going on in your body, using these tools in the moment, because then it only takes 2 to 5 minutes, and then you can move on with your day, your week, your life. It's actually when you don't honor them and then they hit you, that's when you spiral. Because you also just don't have the awareness. Like for me, I didn't have the awareness of what was actually going on in my body when these moments hit me, right? I didn't know that they could just last for 5 minutes and I can move on with my day. And in fact, when I find the gratitude for these moments at the end, I am revitalized after. I feel so beautifully calm and grounded and present, but also like a new life energy fills me. And then I have even more energy to do what I need to do in that moment, to pack up these Rubbermaids and to put these Rubbermaids in my car and to go, 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 because my to-do list was so bloody long. And look, so this is what happens to me when I'm hit with a wave of grief. But I kind of use the same tools and a similar formula when I'm overwhelmed or stressed or anything, right? It doesn't have to be grief and loss. It doesn't have to be the death of a parent. It can be moments of any kind of overwhelming emotion. So I encourage you, when you're feeling this, to just stop for a second, breathe, and just check in with your body to be like, ooh, where am I feeling it physically in my body? What are the mental thoughts going on? Do they serve me or do they not? Can you see how your mind is just trying to protect you from that moment of discomfort? The more you normalize these moments, the less time they'll actually take from your life. But again, it's that mental discipline at the end, right? To not indulge in it. At least for me. I've said this before. I used to love drama. I was so addicted to drama. And so my mind has a tendency of going there. So after the emotional release, it wants to ask questions. It wants to dissect things. It wants to be like, well, why? Why this moment? Why were you triggered here? Like, what is it that you haven't healed from dad? What is it are you feeling overwhelmed about this move? All of this stuff, it tries to get its claws in there afterward, right? And again, that is just a protective mechanism too, but that's also indulging. And it wants to replay the moment of packing up my dad's apartment and make it a big thing, but it doesn't have to be a big thing. I also had to learn with mental discipline to stop these questions. That's a big thing for me this past year, is learning the difference between awareness and overthinking. You can have the awareness of what is going on in the moment and then stop yourself from overthinking the situation. Sometimes there are no answers, and that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to just be like, cool, that just happened, moving on. I don't have to justify it. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up with that. I just wanted to share that experience with you. I wanted to share with you how I actually use this stuff when these moments happen. And I hope, if you find yourself in one of these moments, I just hope you give this a shot. Give this little pattern a shot of, again, I'll map it out quickly. When you get hit with the emotion, check in first with your body, with your breath, the power of your breath. Just breathe for like 2 minutes or set a timer for 5 minutes and just breathe slow. Track what's happening in your body. Where does it hurt? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Where do you feel the fear or the pain or the overwhelm or the stress or the grief? And then breathe through it. Check in with your mind and see the stories, the dialogue that you're having with yourself. And then maybe learn what you need to do. So for me, again, it's talking out loud, saying it hurts, or saying I'm sorry, or saying this sucks, or saying whatever works for you. Allow the emotional release to happen. And then also just, keep an eye on your thoughts in that, in how that release feels in your body. And then have the mental discipline not to indulge. And again, I just got to say this because I do want to clarify. There's a big difference using these tools in these moments when the waves hit me versus the weeks it took to actually process the grief way back when, right? That didn't take 5 minutes. Unpacking that took a lot of questions. It's those moments where I was like, cool, why do I feel such guilt? And I had to think about that, and I had to unpack that for myself to accept it and to heal it. So these are two completely different things, okay? So if you're in the thick of like fresh grief and fresh loss, I think these tools, I didn't have them way back when. I didn't. I do think they would absolutely help, but it is different, right? If you are struggling with not processing something, it's a bit of a different journey. Yeah, and if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed right now, and it doesn't have to do anything with grief or loss, you're just stressed and overwhelmed because that's life in 2023, I encourage you just to sit a timer for 5 minutes and just sit and just allow yourself to be a human being and not a robot that always has to be so put together and on the go. And discomfort, baby, discomfort. Put yourself in positions where you are uncomfortable and watch yourself succeed. Like I said, that's where meditation, breathwork, cold therapy, hot therapy, all of this stuff comes into practice, right? All right. So I'm going to finish off here with a prompt of gratitude, as always. If you're new today, what I love to do at the end of these episodes is send you off with a prompt of gratitude to show you how there is always something to be grateful for, even in the hard moments, even in these moments. Because by finding gratitude, you also find honor. Honor is a really big word for me. It really is. It's something that I had just started to understand this past year of what it means to honor people, honor yourself, honor your mind, body, soul. So gratitude is also not only the quickest reset back to joy, but it's also the quickest avenue to honor. And so for today, can you think of something going on in your life right now that makes you uncomfortable? Whether it's something like this, like a wave that you've been suppressing for hours, days, weeks, or something that's going on at work that makes you uncomfortable, something that's going on in a romantic relationship, a familial relationship, a friendship that makes you uncomfortable. Can you think of that? And as you sit in the discomfort of whatever that is for you, can you also try to find a feeling of gratitude for it? Can you spend a moment seeing how it is pushing you to become a better version of yourself, or it's pushing you to have a greater capacity to handle discomfort? And can you hold on to both of those feelings? Can you hold on to the discomfort? And can you hold on to the gratitude? And just say out loud, if you're able, thank you. Thank you for this discomfort. Thank you for this emotion that wants to release. Thank you for this situation. And then just let it go. Alrighty. Thank you again so much for tuning in. I really hope these tools help you navigate the next time something like this happens. All right. Much love, and bye for now. Thanks so much for checking out today's episode. If you resonated with what you heard, hit that subscribe button and maybe send it to someone who you think might need to hear today's message. If you want to stay up to date and connect with us on the socials, our Instagram handle is @Gratitude Growth Podcast. Until next time, stay grateful, and to keep growing.